Lyra had never seen the sun. Her world was always gray, cloaked in smoke and dust that rose from the factories and broken machines scattered across the city. The air smelled sharp, metallic, and bitter, a smell that made most aliens turn away in disgust. But for Lyra, it was normal. She had been born blind, and though her other senses were sharp, she had learned to navigate her environment without sight. Every crack in the ground, every faint vibration, every small sound told her where she could step safely. The city was enormous, though no one spoke kindly of it. Its towers leaned at odd angles, held together by patches of metal and wiring. Rust ran down the walls like dark veins, and pieces of old machines littered the streets. The air was so thick, with dust that even aliens with perfect vision squinted to see the world clearly. Few cared about those living in the lower levels, and fewer still noticed Lyra. She had become invisible in a city full of noise, motion, and neglect. Lyra's home was a small corner beneath the shadow of a collapsed building. A torn piece of tarp served as her roof, and a few old crates formed her walls. It was not much, but it was hers. She had learned to collect scraps from the streets, pieces of metal, broken wires, and even shattered glass, and turn them into small trinkets or tools she could use. Most of the items were useless to others, but Lyra had a talent for finding tiny uses in what others considered trash. Food was harder to find. She wandered the streets daily, listening for the clatter of discarded containers, the soft plink of something metallic falling in the distance. Some days she found half-rotten fruit, or discarded packets of nutrients from the factory canteens. Other days she had nothing at all and had to go to sleep hungry. Hunger was a constant companion, gnawing at her belly and reminding her that survival was not easy. Despite all of this, Lyra carried herself with a quiet determination. She refused to beg from others, even though many would have given her scraps with a glance. She preferred to rely on her own skill, and she had honed it well. Her fingers were delicate yet strong, able to untangle wires, pick locks, and identify the weight and shape of an object just by touch. In some ways, her blindness had made her sharper, more aware of details that others overlooked. One morning, Lyra woke to the sound of distant rumbling. It was different from the usual clanging of factory machinery. It was deeper, vibrating through the ground in a way that made her teeth chatter. She froze, listening carefully. Something was coming. Something not familiar. Cautiously, she stepped out from her shelter, her hands moving ahead to feel for obstacles. The rumbling grew louder. Soon, a soft humming vibration filled the air, almost musical but low and steady. Lyra tilted her head, trying to detect its source. Above the crumbling skyline, a shadow passed, enormous and smooth. It moved with purpose, gliding silently despite its size. Lyra could not see it, but the vibration through the ground told her that it was large, and its presence filled the sky like a second moon. Her heart raced with curiosity and fear. Aliens had rarely traveled this high into the city's decayed heights, and certainly none had approached so boldly. The humming continued, and soon small objects began to fall from above. Pieces of metal clanged against the street and landed near her feet. Lyra instinctively recoiled, her hands flying forward to steady herself. She picked up one of the pieces. It was light but strangely smooth. Not like the broken junk she normally handled. Its shape was perfect, almost as if it had been made for some purpose she could not yet understand. Curiosity overcame her fear. She ran her fingers along the edges, feeling the careful curves and lines, the subtle grooves that hinted at craftsmanship. Whoever had dropped it had made it deliberately, not by accident. But who, she wondered, would care to craft something so carefully and leave it to fall in a place like this? The hum in the air grew louder, and Lyra realized the source was moving closer to her. She crouched behind a broken wall, holding the piece tightly against her chest. Her other hand brushed over the rough ground, sensing the vibrations of the approaching being. Whatever it was intelligent. The rhythm of its movement was too deliberate to be random. Suddenly the ground shook violently, and a large container toppled near her hiding spot. Dust filled the air, making it hard to breathe. Lyra coughed, pressing herself against the wall, but the hum remained. It was almost welcoming now, like a strange heartbeat that pulsed with life. A voice, soft and warm, broke through the noise. "Hello?" Are you there? Lyra froze. It was not a voice she recognized. Humans rarely traveled this far from their homeworld, and even fewer were seen in abandoned alien cities like this one. Yet the voice was gentle, not threatening. It called her name? Or was it simply calling out to anyone who would answer? I'm here, Lyra replied cautiously, her voice trembling. Don't be afraid. I mean no harm. The voice sounded strangely familiar, somehow soothing. I can help you if you want. Lyra's mind raced. Help? From a human? Humans were rare, and in the stories she had heard from older aliens, they were bold, strange, and unpredictable. She had never met one before, and the thought both frightened and excited her. I survive on my own, she said quietly. I don't need help. I know you're strong, the voice replied, but even the strongest sometimes need guidance. I can show you something valuable you might not have seen before. Lyra hesitated. She had never trusted anyone, not even those few aliens who occasionally offered scraps out of pity. But there was something in the voice that felt honest, curious. And so slowly she stepped out from behind the wall, extending her hands carefully in front of her. A figure appeared, not entirely human but unmistakably so. He was tall, with hands that looked capable of both strength and precision. He carried small tools and devices, and even though Lyra could not see him, she sensed his calm confidence. My name is Ethan, he said. I travel the stars looking for people who are overlooked, places where others see only waste. I think you might be able to see it differently too, in your own way. Lyra frowned. Waste? She asked. I know waste. It's what keeps me alive. It's all I have. Exactly, Ethan replied with a soft laugh. And yet most of it is not just waste. It can be treasure, if you know how to look at it. Let me show you. He knelt down and picked up a small piece of metal from the ground, holding it out to her. Lyra's fingers brushed against it cautiously. It was unlike anything she had touched before. Smooth, cold, with tiny patterns carved into it that only her fingertips could detect. What is it? She asked. Look closely, Ethan said. Not with your eyes, with your mind. Feel the design, the shape, imagine what it could do. Lyra hesitated. She had always survived by necessity, never by imagination. But as she turned the piece in her hands, she began to sense its purpose. It was not food. It was not useless scrap. It was part of a mechanism, something that could move or create. Her heart skipped a beat. Treasure? She whispered. Yes, Ethan said gently. Treasure doesn't always look like gold or jewels. Sometimes it's hidden, waiting for someone clever enough to see it. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt hope stir inside her. She had spent years in darkness, collecting scraps and leftovers just to survive. She had never imagined that her skill in finding things others ignored could lead to something more. Over the next few hours, Ethan guided her through the streets. He did not carry her or lead her by force. Instead, he described the vibrations in the ground, the subtle sounds of falling objects, and the tiny differences in texture that indicated value. Lyra's world, always limited by her blindness, expanded in ways she had never thought possible. By evening, Lyra had collected several pieces that Ethan identified as useful: old power cells, fragments of tools, and even small machines that could be repaired. He showed her how the pieces could be combined, fixed, and used. Each small success brought a glow to her heart she had never known before. This, Ethan said, is just the beginning. You have a talent, Lyra. A talent that could change your life and the lives of others. You just need to believe it yourself. Lyra looked down at the pile of scraps she'd collected over the day. In the past, these would have been mere sustenance or objects to trade for a few pieces of nutrient paste. Now, they were something more. They were possibilities, stepping stones to a life she had only dreamed of in whispers. That night, as she lay beneath her tarp, Lyra could hardly sleep. Her mind raced with ideas, possibilities, and questions. Could she really turn her world of trash into treasure? Could she truly rise above the life she had known for so long? And who was this human who had appeared from the stars to show her a new path? One thing was certain. Nothing in her life would ever be the same. The city, gray and lifeless to others, now seemed full of potential. Every clanging container, every broken machine, every discarded object could hold secrets waiting to be discovered. And for the first time, Lyra felt not fear or hunger, but hope. Somewhere above, the hum of Ethan's ship faded into the distance, leaving Lyra with a quiet excitement. She had survived her whole life by relying on scraps and instinct. Now, with guidance, she might thrive, not just survive. And so, as the night deepened and the city slept under layers of dust and shadow, Lyra began to plan. She would rise above the trash. She would find treasure. And she would do it in her own way, guided by the lessons of a human who had shone. The next morning, the gray light of the city seeped through the cracks in Lyra's tarp. She woke with the strange warmth of hope lingering in her chest. The night before had been extraordinary. She had touched possibilities where others saw only trash, and for the first time, she believed that life could be more than scavenging and hunger. Ethan was waiting nearby. He had not slept on the street, but his presence was quiet and reassuring, as if he had been part of her world all along. "Good morning," he said, his voice soft but steady. "Ready to continue our work?" Lyra hesitated. She had always been independent, and the thought of following someone else, even a human, made her uneasy. But curiosity overcame fear. "Yes," she whispered, her fingers brushing against the small tools he had left for her to feel. Ethan smiled. "Today I want to show you something new, something more than pieces of metal in broken containers, something you can create with your hands." They moved through the lower streets together. Lyra led the way with her keen senses, and Ethan followed carefully, making notes of what she could detect. The city had a rhythm she understood, the slight tremor of machinery in the walls, the distant rumble of vehicles overhead, even the soft scuttling of small alien creatures that lived among the trash. To most it was noise. To Lyra it was information. "Do you see how much potential there is here?" Ethan asked as Lyra's fingers explored a pile of metal near an abandoned building. "Most people walk past this and call it junk, but every piece has a story, and every story can become something valuable." Lyra turned the metal in her hands. "I see patterns," she said slowly. "Even though I can't see them with my eyes, I feel them. Some pieces are older, worn, others new, strong. I know which will last and which will break." Ethan nodded. "Exactly. You've been doing this your whole life without knowing its full value. You're smarter than most of the aliens here, Lyra. Your blindness, it has made your mind sharper in ways many cannot imagine." For the first time, Lyra felt proud, not just of surviving, but of understanding. She had been told she was weak, useless, blind, but here was someone recognizing her skill, someone who believed she could do more. They worked for hours. Ethan taught her to identify power cells hidden inside broken machines, to locate rare metals disguised as ordinary scraps, and to recognize circuitry that could be repaired. He showed her how small components could be combined to make working tools: flashlights, small motors, even a tiny water purifier. Lyra was amazed. All her life, she had collected scraps for survival, never imagining that they could be turned into something useful or beautiful. Each small success filled her with pride. She no longer felt invisible. She felt seen. "You are learning quickly," Ethan said, "and I want to show you something more." "A challenge," Lyra tilted her head. "A challenge?" "Yes," Ethan said, reaching into his pack. He pulled out a small device. It was no bigger than her hand, a sphere of smooth metal with tiny engravings. "This device is broken. Most would throw it away, but I want you to fix it. Use what you've collected and see if you can bring it back to life." Lyra's fingers hovered over the device. It felt strange, alien, but familiar in the way Ethan had explained things. She traced the grooves, the tiny ridges that indicated where pieces could connect. Her mind worked quickly, imagining the mechanisms inside. "I can try," she whispered. "You will," Ethan said, smiling. "Trust yourself." For hours, Lyra worked. She disassembled the sphere, sorted its components, and tested small connections using pieces she had collected over the past days. Ethan watched silently, only offering guidance when she asked. Slowly, the sphere began to hum softly, a tiny but real vibration that made Lyra's heart leap. "It's working," she said, her voice shaking with excitement. Yes, Ethan said. You did this. You turned trash into treasure. This is only the beginning, Lyra. There is so much more you can do. For the first time, Lyra realized that her life of scavenging had given her an extraordinary advantage. She knew her city, its rhythms, its hidden paths, and its discarded secrets. Where others saw decay, she saw opportunity. Where others saw trash, she saw treasure. Their work continued over the next several days. Lyra's skills improved rapidly. She repaired old tools, created small machines, and even began to improvise her own inventions. Ethan taught her the basics of energy flow, mechanical repair, and the value of resourcefulness. One afternoon, as they sorted through a pile of broken robots, a sudden clatter interrupted them. Lyra froze, listening. "They're here," Ethan whispered. Lyra's fingers tightened around a small wrench. She could feel the vibrations of several beings approaching. Other aliens, not friendly ones. Rumors of gangs scavenging the lower city were true. Some believed that anything valuable in this part of the city belonged to no one, and they took it by force. Lyra had faced dangers before, but this felt different. These aliens were organized, confident, and cruel. She could sense their strength through the vibrations of their footsteps. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. "Stay calm. We can handle this. Remember, you have skills they do not expect. You know this city. You know what's here." The gang arrived, large and threatening, their eyes scanning for easy targets. "What do we have here?" One of them sneered. "Looks like someone's been collecting scraps for themselves." Lyra stayed silent, her mind racing. She could sense the gang's movements, the patterns in their steps, the subtle vibrations of their weapons. She felt the pile of metal and devices around her ready to be used. Ethan whispered, "Follow my lead. Use what you've learned." With precise, calm movements, Lyra and Ethan began using the environment to their advantage. They set small traps using repurposed wires, devices, and debris. A discarded power cell created a bright spark that startled the first alien. Another triggered a small net, tangling a second. Lyra's hands moved quickly, guided by her knowledge of the city's layout. The gang faltered, confused by the unexpected tactics. They were strong, but they had not anticipated ingenuity. Lyra's understanding of her surroundings, combined with Ethan's guidance, turned the tables. The aliens retreated, muttering threats, but defeated by clever strategy rather than force. Breathing heavily, Lyra looked at the chaos around her. Broken machines, scattered tools, and small sparks filled the air. But for the first time, she felt powerful. She had turned what others considered trash into defense, survival, and even victory. Ethan smiled. "You did well. I knew you could. You see, Lyra, treasure is not always in gold or jewels. It is in skill, knowledge, and the courage to act. You have all of that." Lyra's heart swelled. She had survived hunger, darkness, and indifference for her entire life. But now she understood that her world was full of hidden possibilities, waiting for her to find them. She was not just a blind scavenger. She was a creator, a problem solver, and someone who could turn even the most hopeless situation into opportunity. Over the next few days, Ethan and Lyra continued to explore the city. They repaired old machines, improved devices, and even built small inventions that helped the poorer citizens. Word began to spread among the lower levels that a young blind alien was capable of extraordinary things. Some came to see her work, not to mock her as they had in the past, but to learn from her or trade small items in exchange for her creations. Lyra felt a sense of purpose she had never known. Her world, once dull and gray, was filled with excitement and potential. She began to dream not only of survival, but of innovation, community, and even adventure beyond the city's crumbling walls. Ethan, noticing her growth, said one evening, "Lyra, you are ready for the next step. There are places beyond this city, beyond this planet, where your talents could shine even brighter. But first you must learn to see the treasure in everything, hidden in plain sight in places others ignore." Lyra nodded, her fingers tracing the edges of a small device she had just repaired. "I will," she said. "I want to learn everything. I want to see the world differently, even if I cannot see it with my eyes." Ethan smiled. "That is the spirit. Humans and aliens alike have overlooked you for too long, but your mind, your skill, they cannot ignore." For the first time, Lyra felt that she belonged, not just in her corner of the city, not just among scraps and trash, but in a world that had possibilities she could shape with her own hands. And she knew, deep inside, that she had the power to change not only her life but the lives of those around her. That night, as the city slept under a blanket of dust and distant smog, Lyra lay beneath her tarp, feeling for the first time a sense of excitement rather than fear. Her fingers brushed over the small treasures she had collected and repaired that day. Each one was a symbol of her skill, her intelligence, and her growing confidence. She thought of Ethan, the human who had appeared like a spark in her gray world. He had shown her that even the blind could find treasure where others saw only junk, and she had believed him. The hum of his ship in the distance faded, but its impact remained. Lyra knew that her life had changed forever. She would continue to explore, to repair, to innovate, and one day, she would show the world that what had been ignored, overlooked, or discarded could become something remarkable. In the quiet of the night, Lyra dreamed of machines she could build, inventions she could repair, and treasures she could discover. She dreamed no. The city had grown quieter after the scuffle with the gang, but Lyra could feel its pulse in every vibration beneath her feet. The streets were full of forgotten machines, broken containers, and abandoned tools, treasures waiting to be discovered. With Ethan's guidance, she began to understand that survival was no longer about merely eating scraps. Survival could mean creating, innovating, and even improving life for herself and others. Each morning, Lyra would rise before the first hum of the city's machinery. She would stretch her fingers over the small pile of collected parts and plan the day ahead. Some items were clearly valuable, like power cells and tiny devices she could repair. Others seemed useless, but Ethan had taught her that with creativity, even the smallest object could serve a purpose. "You are learning faster than I imagined," Ethan said one morning, handing her a small panel of circuits. "Try to figure out what this could do. Think beyond what it was made for." Lyra ran her fingers over the smooth edges, feeling the intricate grooves of the circuits. "It could maybe power something small," she murmured, "or connect to another device to make it stronger." "Exactly," Ethan said. "You are starting to see patterns, possibilities. That is what makes a treasure valuable, not just what it is, but what it can become." Lyra smiled. For the first time, she felt that her blindness was not a limitation, but an advantage. Her fingers could detect details that others overlooked. Her ears picked up subtle vibrations, telling her the state of a machine or the presence of hidden compartments. She had always survived on instinct, but now her instinct combined with knowledge. Over the next week, Lyra began to work on a larger project. She had collected several broken machines, discarded electronics, and odd components from the city's lower levels. Ethan encouraged her to combine them in ways she had never tried before. "Take your time," he said. "Think about how each piece could fit. Don't just repair. Imagine creating something entirely new." Lyra's mind raced with possibilities. She connected wires, reassembled gears, and aligned small motors. The project was challenging, but she enjoyed every moment. It was different from scavenging for food or avoiding danger. Here she was free to think, create, and explore her talent. By the fourth day, the device began to take shape. It was a small transport drone, not much bigger than a crate, capable of carrying supplies. Lyra could feel the vibrations of its motors through her fingertips as she tested them. The drone hummed softly, alive and ready. "It's working," Lyra whispered, her heart pounding with excitement. Ethan grinned. "You see? You turned discarded pieces into something useful. You made something new from what others had thrown away. That is the power of perspective, Lyra. That is the power of a human mind combined with yours." Lyra's confidence grew with each success. She began to see opportunities everywhere. Old robots could be repaired and repurposed. Broken containers could become storage units or shelters. Even damaged vehicles could be fixed to move people or goods. The city that once seemed lifeless and gray now appeared full of potential. One afternoon, while Lyra tested her transport drone, she noticed something unusual in the distance. A faint vibration ran through the ground, a rhythm different from the city's usual hum. It was deliberate, organized, and powerful. Lyra froze, sensing a large group moving toward her area. "They're coming again," Ethan said, his voice low. "The gang we saw before. They've noticed your success and want to take what you found." Lyra's fingers tightened around the drone controls. Fear was present, but it was mingled with determination. She had faced danger before, and now she had tools, knowledge, and strategy on her side. Ethan guided her to a safer spot and whispered, "We can turn this to our advantage. You know the city better than they do. Use what you've learned. The gang appeared, large and confident, scanning the area for valuables. They had assumed that this was an easy target, a blind alien girl alone, unprotected, surrounded by discarded machines. They had underestimated her. Lyra's hands moved swiftly, placing small devices she had created around the area. She positioned a few repaired drones near entrances, set simple alarms, and prepared mechanical traps using scrap materials. Each device had a purpose: to distract, to warn, or to block the gang's path. The aliens advanced cautiously. They did not expect resistance beyond physical strength, but Lyra's traps activated perfectly. A drone swooped down, startling one gang member and causing him to stumble. A small mechanical device emitted bright sparks, forcing another to retreat. The remaining aliens were confused, unable to predict the attacks. Lyra and Ethan moved strategically, using the vibrations of the ground and the hum of the city to coordinate their defense. Every movement was deliberate. Every scrap of metal and device became a tool in their hands. Finally, the gang realized that their brute strength was ineffective. They had been outsmarted, trapped by ingenuity rather than defeated by force. Grumbling threats, they retreated, leaving Lyra and Ethan victorious. Breathing heavily, Lyra felt a sense of pride she had never known. She had faced a real threat and turned it into an opportunity to demonstrate her skill. She had not just survived. She had outsmarted others. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. "You are remarkable, Lyra. You are not just a survivor. You are a strategist, a creator, and a problem solver. Treasure is not always what you hold in your hands, it is what you do with it." Over the following weeks, Lyra's reputation in the lower levels began to change. Aliens who once ignored or mocked her began to seek her out. They brought broken devices and old machinery, hoping she could repair them or create something new. Some offered scraps in exchange for her inventions. Slowly, Lyra realized that she was no longer invisible. She had become someone important, someone whose talent could not be overlooked. One day, as she was working on a complex device, Ethan brought her an unusual package. "This came from above," he said. "It's from a trader who saw your work. They have rare parts that you might find useful." Lyra's fingers traced the package carefully. Inside were components she had never encountered before: advanced circuits, strong alloys, and delicate tools. She could feel the potential in each item, the possibilities for new creations. Ethan watched her carefully. "This is your chance to take everything you've learned and create something extraordinary. Don't just repair, invent, improve, show the world what you can do." Lyra felt excitement surge through her. She began to plan, thinking of inventions that could help not only herself but others in the city. She imagined small transport systems to carry goods, devices to clean polluted air, and machines that could assist those who were weak or struggling. Her mind was alive with ideas. Days turned into weeks, and Lyra's creations multiplied. She repaired old drones, built new devices from scrap, and even began teaching some of the younger aliens how to identify useful items. She was no longer alone. A small community began to form around her work, curious aliens eager to learn and help. Yet despite her success, Lyra never forgot the lessons Ethan had taught her. She remained humble, careful, and observant. She understood that her world was fragile, full of dangers and hidden opportunities. Every invention, every repaired device was a step toward something greater, but she had to remain vigilant. One evening, as the city quieted and the dust settled over the streets, Lyra reflected on how far she had come. Just weeks ago, she had been a blind girl collecting scraps for food, barely surviving each day. Now she was an inventor, a teacher, and a creator. She could see the value in what others ignored, and she understood that her talent could change not only her life but the lives of those around her. Ethan approached her quietly, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You've done well," he said. "You've learned to see treasure in places others overlook. But there is still more to discover. Your talent is rare, Lyra, and it can reach far beyond this city, even beyond this planet." Lyra smiled, her fingers brushing over a small device she had just finished. "I want to learn everything," she said. "I want to see the possibilities in everything. I want to create, to help, and to show that even what is discarded can become extraordinary." Ethan nodded. "Then we will continue. There are wonders out there, things no one has seen, and with your skills you can find them and use them in ways no one else could." For the first time, Lyra felt truly alive. The city, once a place of despair and survival, was now a playground of discovery and invention. Every vibration, every sound, every discarded object held potential. And she, a blind alien girl who had once only known hunger and fear, had the knowledge, skill, and courage to turn it all into treasure. As the night fell, Lyra lay beneath her tarp, her hands brushing over her latest creations. She felt the hum of her repaired drones, the vibration of small motors, and the potential energy stored in the devices around her. Each one was a symbol of her growth, her ingenuity, and her courage. Her dreams were no longer of survival. They were of discovery, creation, and innovation. She imagined machines that could move faster, tools that could help others, and devices that could transform her world. And in her heart, she knew that this was only the beginning. With Ethan's guidance, Lyra had learned to see the hidden value in everything. She had turned what others considered trash into treasure, and in doing so had begun to change the world. Not just for herself, but... The city was quieter than usual that morning, yet the tension in the streets was palpable. Lyra had been hearing faint vibrations for hours, subtle patterns that indicated movement from multiple sources. Something was approaching, and it was not friendly. The gangs she had outsmarted before had likely returned, this time in greater numbers, seeking revenge and the treasures she had collected. Lyra stood in her small corner beneath the tarp, her fingers brushing over the latest devices she had repaired. Drones, alarms, and mechanical traps surrounded her. Each item had a purpose. Each piece was a potential defense. She had learned from Ethan that intelligence and preparation could overcome even the strongest opponents. Ethan appeared beside her, carrying a small toolkit. "They've been watching," he said quietly. "They know your skill is greater than theirs, but they underestimate your cunning. Today we turn that to our advantage." Lyra nodded. Her heart pounded with anticipation, but fear was tempered by confidence. She had faced threats before and survived. Now she had weapons, inventions, and strategy. She could face them head-on, carefully, cleverly, and with precision. The gang arrived in waves. Their footsteps created vibrations that Lyra could feel through the ground, and she counted them, gauging their numbers and movement patterns. "They're organized," she whispered to Ethan. "They'll try to surround us first." Ethan nodded. "Exactly. We'll need to split their focus and use the environment. You know this city better than anyone. Lead and I'll follow." Lyra moved quickly, placing small drones along the streets and near the entrances to her area. Each drone emitted a soft hum that grew into a louder warning when triggered, startling the gang members. Tiny mechanical nets sprung from discarded crates, entangling those who advanced too quickly. Sparks flew from short-circuited circuits, forcing the intruders to hesitate and retreat temporarily. Lyra felt the thrill of control. For years she had survived in a world that ignored her. Now her skill and ingenuity gave her power over even those who thought they were stronger. Every vibration under her feet, every sound in the city became information she could use. Ethan guided her through the chaos, providing advice only when necessary. "Remember," he whispered, "your strength is not in force. It is in intelligence and strategy and creativity. Use that and you will win." The gang regrouped, attempting to flank her position. Lyra's fingers moved rapidly, triggering small traps and activating drones. One gang member fell into a pit concealed under a layer of scrap metal. Another became entangled in a net, unable to move. The rest stumbled over obstacles she had placed strategically. But the leader of the gang was clever. He noticed the patterns in her defenses and began to predict her moves. Lyra felt a flicker of worry. He was stronger and more experienced than the others. But she did not panic. She had learned from Ethan that every opponent had weaknesses, and the city itself could be used as an ally. She led the leader toward a narrow alley where her devices had created a maze of obstacles. The vibrations under her feet told her exactly where he would step. With a swift motion, she triggered a small contraption that released a bright flash of light, disorienting him. A drone swooped down, distracting him further. Ethan stepped forward, not to attack but to guide and support. "Now, Lyra," he said softly. "Use the environment." Lyra pressed a small panel, and several crates tumbled down from above, creating a barrier between the leader and the rest of the gang. He growled in frustration, realizing that brute force would not win this encounter. The rest of the gang hesitated, seeing their leader blocked and trapped. In minutes, the gang was forced to retreat. Lyra had outsmarted them, not with violence but with ingenuity and strategy. The city, once a place of fear and survival, had become her battlefield, and she had emerged victorious. Breathing heavily, Lyra surveyed the aftermath. Broken crates, scattered devices, and hums from her drones filled the streets. But there was no fear in her heart, only pride. She had protected her space, her work, and her community. For the first time, she felt unstoppable. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did it," he said. "You turned what others call trash into tools, and you turned fear into triumph. You are no longer just surviving, Lyra. You are transforming your world." Lyra smiled, her fingers brushing over a repaired drone. "I never imagined I could do this," she said quietly. "I thought I was only surviving, only collecting scraps to stay alive, but now, I feel like I can build, create, and protect everything I care about." "You can," Ethan said. "And soon you will do even more. You have talent, intelligence, and courage. You have shown that even the smallest and most overlooked beings can make a difference. Humans believe in creativity and ingenuity, and now you understand that too." In the following days, Lyra's work expanded. She began to repair old transport vehicles, creating small pathways to move supplies through the lower city. She built mechanical helpers for those too weak or old to gather materials. She taught younger aliens to identify valuable scraps, repair devices, and create simple inventions. Her influence grew, not through fear or authority, but through knowledge, skill, and inspiration. The city's lower levels, once filled with despair, slowly transformed. Aliens who had once ignored or mocked Lyra now sought her guidance. Broken machines were repaired and repurposed. Trash became tools. The community began to thrive under her ingenuity. Lyra felt a new sense of purpose. She had gone from blind scavenger to inventor, strategist, and teacher. Her life was no longer defined by survival alone, but by creation, discovery, and the ability to inspire others. One evening, as she repaired a small transport drone, Ethan approached with a new package. "This came from a trader from another district," he said. "They've heard of your work and want to contribute rare components." Lyra's fingers brushed over the contents carefully. Advanced circuits, strong alloys, and delicate tools were inside. She could feel the potential for new creations, machines that could help the city and devices that could improve daily life. "This is amazing," Lyra whispered. "I've never imagined having access to such parts." "You've earned it," Ethan replied. "Your talent, your determination, and your creativity have shown that even the smallest efforts can create greatness. Now you have the tools to reach even further." Lyra worked tirelessly for weeks, building new devices and improving old ones. She repaired drones that could carry heavy loads, built machines that purified air in polluted areas, and created simple systems to distribute water and supplies efficiently. Her inventions not only helped her but improved the lives of everyone in her community. As her reputation grew, more aliens began to respect her and seek her advice. No longer was she invisible. She had become a symbol of hope and ingenuity. She had turned a life of struggle into a life of purpose and transformation. One day, Ethan approached her with a thoughtful expression. "Lyra, you have accomplished something extraordinary. You've transformed your corner of the city, but there is still more out there, beyond these streets, beyond this planet. Your talent is rare, and the universe has more challenges and treasures waiting for you." Lyra nodded, her fingers brushing over a new device she had created. "I want to see more. I want to learn everything I can. I want to show that even what seems useless can become valuable. I want to continue transforming not just my world, but the worlds beyond." Ethan smiled. "Then we will. You have proven that creativity, intelligence, and courage can overcome fear, danger, and neglect. Humans have always believed in using knowledge to make a difference. Now you understand that too." The days turned into weeks, and Lyra continued to expand her influence. She taught others, repaired devices, and built machines that helped everyone in her district. The city's lower levels, once gray and lifeless, began to glow with activity and hope. Lyra's skills had transformed her life completely. She had gone from a blind girl surviving on scraps to a respected inventor, teacher, and leader. She had learned that treasure was not just gold or jewels. It was knowledge, skill, and the ability to see potential where others saw only waste. Her relationship with Ethan remained strong. He continued to guide her, but he also allowed her independence. She had grown capable of making her own decisions, solving her own problems, and leading others. Ethan had shown her the path, but Lyra had walked it with courage, intelligence, and determination. One evening, as the sun, or what passed for sun in the city's gray sky, began to fade, Lyra stood on the rooftop of a repaired building, feeling the wind on her face and the vibrations of the city beneath her feet. She could sense the changes she had made. The streets were safer, the machines were functional, and the community was thriving. Ethan approached quietly. "You've done something incredible, Lyra. You've not only survived, but you've transformed your world. You are a true creator, and your story will inspire others for a long time." Lyra smiled, her fingers brushing over a small, repaired drone. "I couldn't have done it without you," she said softly. "You showed me that even a blind girl can see treasure, and now I feel like I can see everything." "You always could," Ethan said. "You just needed someone to show you how to use your vision in a different way." Lyra looked out over the city, feeling pride and hope. She had faced hunger, fear, and danger,